Welcome, everybody, to Weekly Quantum World Detangled, Season 1, Episode 6. I'm here with my friends.
Hi, everyone. Denise Ruffner, Cambridge Quantum Computing, coming to you from Pasadena, California.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Tommaso from Entropica, calling you from Singapore.
And I'm Cristina Escoda from Orca Computing, calling in from Venice in LA.
Another special guest that we're very excited to have on our show. And my name is André König, CEO of Interference Advisors.
So I'm just proud there's two Southern Californians finally on the show. So welcome, Cristina.
We're still feeling on the worldwide part, except Tommaso, but we couldn't pass up this opportunity.
I want to start off by saying it looks like Tommaso got a haircut.
That's true. Yes, finally, they opened a little bit, they opened a few shops again here in Singapore, and they took the chance.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's great.
Cristina, I think you started out in finance, hedge funds, investments, right? Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, that's how I actually got into the business world, through the finance investment side of things. Okay.
Have you raised any funds or invested any funds in quantum tech yourself?
I have. We just raised. We are in the process of finalizing the raise of funds, and very soon we'll have news on that. I have not invested in quantum, but that's the reason why I started looking into quantum, actually, as an investor.
Oh, okay. Well, when was that? How long ago?
So that was about 3 years ago. And that's actually how Orca came about. I was initially thinking that there was an opportunity, and I guess that's how you got in, started with it as well. And then quickly just got sucked into realizing that maybe investing was a little early, but actually some of these companies, what they needed was the business side of things. And, I was just talking to lots and lots of academics with fantastic technology, but who had no idea how to bring it out into the world. And so, from an investor, I became, again, an entrepreneur.
I already have a million questions for you, but we have to stick to our program. So let's look at some quantum news.
This week, I wanted to talk about a report that was sent to me by Abby Rampal, who's the CEO of Solid State AI. A plug for Abby. He's also a One Quantum member. And it's IDC published a recent report on quantum computing adoption trends 2020 survey findings. And there were some statements in here that really caused me to pause and think, and I thought it would be a good dialogue for us today. So let's start with the first statement that by 2023, 25% of Fortune 500 companies will gain a competitive advantage from quantum computing. And I wanted to ask you three what you thought of that. I actually posed this to the person that I want most to be on the show. I'm sorry, Cristina, but it's the quantum bullshit detector on Twitter. And I tweeted him and said, what do you think of this? And I haven't heard a response. So I don't know if any of you three have a comment on that. This was a very surprising statistic to me. It seemed a little aggressive that they would have competitive advantage. But I wanted to hear what you guys thought.
Personally, I don't see how that can be the case. I mean, as much as I truly believe in the power of quantum and the prospects for the future, 2023 is 3 years from today. A lot of things need to happen for between 500 companies to get to that level. I don't know if you guys agree. But
I do agree with you, yes. I mean, the statements, I think they always have to be taken with a pinch of salt, right? And
yeah,
I'm not even sure we really have to wait for a bullshit detector to...
Yes, we need the bullshit detector. Yeah. So second statement, initial areas of focus for quantum computing will be AI, business intelligence, and overall productivity and efficiency.
I mean, it's as vague as it gets, right?
It surprised me that it didn't say chemistry. I think that's a huge omission.
The problem is that if you put chemistry, okay, now we can have a little bit of fun with the sentences. If you put chemistry, of course, you're already cutting off. I mean, where do you really put that into the Fortune 500 companies thing?
That's true. That's true.
So they kind of eliminate chemistry from the picture straight away.
It's true. Okay, and then the final statement is 19% of the respondents think that quantum computing will eliminate the need for HPC hardware.
Ouch!
Yeah, that is not gonna happen. I think that I mean, okay, it's not so much about the survey specifically, but my 2 cents very quickly. I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding between quantum computing and HPC, as if these two machines or these two, technologies are kind of competing. Sure, they are in a sense, but they are complementary to each other. It's not that one comes, removes the other, and then we move into this quantum world where everything is possible and all problems of humanity are solved. That's not how it works.
Well, I agree, and I just was very surprised to see these comments, and now I'm trying to find the screen, which is
and when
here,
sent this to you and myself, I looked at it and I thought it was an interesting report, and check it out. There is some interesting data in there, but digging into it, IDC just doesn't know what they're talking about, and if quantum bullshit detector fails to call bullshit on them, I'm calling bullshit.
Absolutely. It's 8 a.m. actually 8:10 a.m. in Singapore, and wow, things are already heating up.
Heating up. Cool.
Episode 6, baby.
Tommaso,
you have a paper for us.
Sure.
Paper.
Okay, let's find the paper. Actually, the idea of the paper is that the paper should be from last week, or at least maybe at the beginning we discussed that to be the case. This paper is from almost a decade ago because it came out in 2009. Latest version 2013, but it's a beautiful paper. Quantum error correction for beginners. Can you see my screen? By David, Murrow, and Kanemoto. It's fantastic. If you are thinking about brushing off your skills in quantum error correction, this paper is going to be your best friend for the next few weeks. It's quite nice because it doesn't go through all the hardcore theory of the domain, but it really gives you a quick and, I was going to say gentle as it gets, I guess, introduction to the field. It's great. It's easy to read. There's a lot of examples. So if anyone listening is looking at starting to work on quantum error correction, I hope they will find this useful. I certainly did.
And I can come up with a question. So I'll read the paper and I'll ask you something next time.
Yes. Cool.
Or you read the paper, I ask you something.
Chris.
It's very nice actually. It's great to have you on the show. Also because I think something very unique about quantum technologies or quantum computing today is that you have different ways to implement, or you have different ways to build a quantum computer. Said it very plainly, right? And we had a guest who's working on Jan, who's working on superconducting chips. We had Tony from Honeywell who's working on ion traps. But you folks are actually using a different technology for quantum computing, which is photonics. And I think it would be a great way to start if you can share a little bit about that, and maybe also, share your views on why you think is different, what you think, what you think is the potential of the technology, how it differentiates from the others.
Absolutely. And I think it's fair to say that photonics as a platform and its promise has been around as a concept for a long time. And the reasons are pretty clear. I mean, photons are excellent carriers of quantum information. I mean, they have high connectivity because you can connect them beyond two-dimensional next neighbor. They have very low noise. They're relatively easily to manipulate because, we see that with telecommunications. And so in that sense, they're almost like network ready. They're naturally network ready. And they're fast. They allow a system to run fast. The challenge with photonics approaches to quantum computing, though, have been precisely the fact that they're primarily very low in terms of noise. And so what that means is that it's very hard for two photons to interact. And that means that creating gates is actually really challenging. And I mean, related to that is the fact that these interactions are probabilistic. And so, you know, even the primary concept of having a photon source, which is the starting point of a photonic quantum computer, has been challenging in the sense that it's very hard to build a source that will spit out indistinguishable photons on demand. And so our approach at Orca, and the reason why we got really excited about the technology that was originally developed at Oxford University, is that just by using a quantum memory that is short-lived but long enough to actually hold a photon for 100 nanoseconds or so, that technology allows us to synchronize photons. And so it allows us to synchronize operations in a way that actually ends up just creating on-demand on-demand photons, on-demand operations. And so this is, on the back of this, we can then imagine, you know, the creation of, and I don't know how familiar you are with the concept of cluster states and measurement-based quantum computing, but basically you can create a state of a large entangled state of many photons once you can control this, and then through measurements you can start creating your processor. So that's the, you know, the sort of background on photonic quantum computing. But until now there hasn't been a source that is deterministic of photons, and so that's what we're building as a first step at Orca.
Nice. I love MBQC, measurement-based quantum computing. I spent, you know, about 4 years working on the theory of that, and it's very nice to finally hear the concept popping out also in the industrial sense, because usually people speak about the circuit model, which makes perfect sense, is easy to understand, but MBQC is just so neat. And maybe this is actually a good excuse for next week's paper.
Yeah, I mean, look, my background is I'm a theoretical physicist, so that to me is incredible, and just the thought that we can, you know, in the next few years, just see that realized in, you know, in a machine, in an actual machine. I think that's what's pushing us forward.
Nice. Okay, so since you mentioned before at the beginning of the conversation that you're in the process of closing your investment round, congratulations for that, by the way. And since it sounds like you have great plans to push the technology forward, what do you think are the short-term expectations of, well, in this case, investors, but really maybe of the industry when it comes to quantum technologies?
So I think the expectations have changed a little bit recently, and that's for good, in the sense that I feel in the past there was a bit of a disconnect between the expectations of the general public and what the industry could actually deliver short term. And I feel I've seen the shift that now in many companies, especially on the software side, which is the companies that are building applications and talking mostly to clients, to really have an honest conversation around what is feasible and the timelines. I think we're personally, and I'm personally, and at Orca, we are very excited about NISQ. And by NISQ, I mean, this is kind of a, you know, a term that many different people understand differently. For us, it's not only about the 50 qubit systems, but rather just finding that sweet spot where we can start learning and then scaling up. And I like a lot the term toy model, because I think, you know, it is through play that we all discover, and I don't see it differently for us. And I think the most successful products many of them start by being toys. And so, you know, our approach is to build something that will have a few qubits. I think it is early to say whether that will be useful or not. I think many people think that below 1,000 qubits, nothing will ever be useful, and that might be the case, but I don't see how we avoid exploring that space. And so I think many actually we're seeing corporates and industry getting more interested in working with us to explore that mid ground.
Look, I agree. One of the, in my opinion, one of the reasons why Moore's law actually became to be, why Moore's law materialized is because at each step of Moore's law, you have a more powerful machine that helps you to understand how to build the machine at the next step. And this is really, to me, I would say toy model really captures that, which is very important. And is also what we're going to need in quantum computing. Nice.
Yeah, and maybe something to add to that, which I think is important, is so many investors, especially those that are not very savvy, the first question they ask is, what are the applications, right? I mean, what industries are we talking? Are we talking materials, sciences, chemistry? The way we think about it is slightly different in the sense that we're almost a step before the application, the industrial application per se, but we're thinking about mathematical tools. What are the mathematical tools that these new short-term machines can actually help solve? Because on the back of that, then you can apply it to different industries. I think maybe, Denise, that's related to the news that you brought up on AI, and it looked like that report was looking at optimization, and I think that I think that's what they were trying to point at, and it might be, because I think there are many optimization mathematical techniques that could easily help be solved by these early stage machines.
So one of my questions is kind of, when do you think we're going to have 1,000 qubits, or when do you think the industry is going to have enough qubits to show more quantum advantage than we have today?
Yeah, that's a hard one, and it really depends what you mean by 1,000 qubits. Say, are these error corrected or not? I think it's going to take at least 5 years. I think around 5 years, that's probably where I see things going. At least that's our, in terms of Orca, that's how we're pushing forward. And but before quantum advantage, there's a lot of things that we can learn, and so it might mean that we bring advantage through other means. Maybe by making a system a little bit more compact in the amount of different operations that need to happen. So I'm pretty hopeful about this mid ground. In fact, I'm pretty excited about the path. I think once we get to the real full tolerant quantum computer, okay, well, that's fantastic. But what's going to happen between now and then? It's what's really driving us.
Well, we are over time again. We can't stick to our 20 minutes. Too many fascinating guests. I'll have one closing question for you, Cristina. You said a lot of great inventions start, through playing and with toys, but your company name is Orca, and the orca, the killer whale, is not the most friendly of mammals, even a little bit aggressive. How do you reconcile that, and what is the ultimate vision for Orca computing?
So you are right. I mean, so let me just say that the name Orca originally comes from the invention itself. It is true that we're looking at building playful machines to start with, but our ultimate goal is, to become a big player, especially at least in Europe. I mean, there is a current gap in the European landscape, we feel, and there's been a lot of investment and development in the US. So, yes, I don't want to be shy by saying we don't aim to become a bit of an Orca, at least in our own space.
And I'll pick up the conversation about Europe with you another time, because I think that's an interesting one. A lot of things happening there, I think. But we're out of time, unless anybody has a closing comment.
I do, actually, the nerdy one. I'll push you back a little bit on orcas. They are amazing animals, and they have a reputation that doesn't fit them at all. There's never been, and this is one of the most amazing things about orcas, there's never been a single attack of an orca to a human being in the wild. never.
Mhm.
Which actually,
Yeah, I agree with you. Orcas are, fantastic, amazing animals. So I'm quite proud to be associated with them.
When it comes to quantum technologies, you can trust the weekly Quantum World Detangled. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This was Season 1, Episode 6 of the weekly Quantum World Detangled. You are now detangled.